Welcome to LaGrange First Church of God. This is our weekly podcast. Thanks for tuning in.
Title for today is Dad Jokes. It takes a special intelligence to understand that only fathers get. No? All right. This is going to be a long time. All right. I'm going to give you some more examples. You ready? If you didn't, that's a joke. So here you go. First off, what car did the wise men drive to see Jesus? A Honda Accord. The Bible says they all came in one accord. Okay. Thanks, Linda. What kind of person was Boaz before he got married? Ruthless. He married Ruth. Okay. All right. Go read. Spend some more time. You'll get these. A little bit more time. Next. Maybe. Which servant of God was the most or the worst lawbreaker in the entire Bible? Moses. He broke all 10 commandments at once. All right. At what time of day was Adam created? A little before Eve. Okay. Need an ark? I know a guy. This one's for Chad. What's God's favorite chord? So on a guitar. Favorite chord? Sarah would, yeah. Jesus. Jesus. Okay. Now, you might wonder why I'm up here attempting stand-up comedy and hopefully doing okay. Well, the thing is, I would say that things that don't change is dad jokes. I mean, the funny thing is when you're a kid, Chad could probably attest to this, the kids are like, oh, Dad, right? I mean, how many times do we hear? Because dad jokes don't change. Like, they're just, for some reason, you have to be a certain amount of intelligence, like a certain level of intelligence to understand them, right? I mean, obviously. And the funny thing is, it just seems you tell the joke, and you get to, and you have to explain it, you know? And you're like, I shouldn't have to explain. Mallory, I should not have to explain my jokes to you in class. You should just get them. Well, to help with this, there's a number of types of jokes. My favorite that usually gets the most that type of response are puns. You know, we were riding in the car or in the truck, and Riker, my second born, really likes gum. And so we were talking about gum, and we were talking about bubble gum. And we're in the car, and Riker goes, Dad, when they make the gum, in the factory, how do they choose what color to make the gum? And I went, choose. Okay. And Jace was like, yeah, choose. So Jace is already in the dad joke line of thinking, so that's good. There's other ones too. So there's one's called anecdotal, so you can use some anecdotal. There's situational, where you're like, hey, well, a priest, a rabbi, I'm not going to tell one. Situational ones, there's one-liners, usually the ones that the kids get you with, and you're just like, farcical, which are kind of fake or crazy. Deadpan, which is like Bueller, where it's so monotone and so dry that you have to look at them for a moment and be like, was that really a joke? Or are you serious? And then ironic. Now, all of these jokes have one thing basically in common, and that's the structure. When you start structuring a joke, there's more to it. I think most people think that comedians are just funny, right? It takes effort, a lot of effort, and a lot of practice. And what you have to understand is that a joke takes, first off, a setup. Anytime that you tell a joke, you have to set up the situation. You can't just say it. You have to create a relationship. You have to draw people in. You have to make them want to hear what you're saying and wait for the next part. If you don't do that, the joke is completely lost. No matter what you say, they will not get it because you have to give them the moment and time to set it up. So the setup is very important. And how you set it up, the wording, how clearly it's set up, very important. And the next part of that is the delivery of the punchline. Now, the punchline is going to vary. Sometimes it's complex and long. Sometimes it's one word. But ultimately, what really determines the quality of a joke is the timing. And some people are really good at it. I mean, every day. They're just funny. That's just who they are. They have good timing. Now, I want you to think about something. This applies to a lot of things. And I put up there that the one thing that never changes, I think, this Sunday that I want to spend time on is it was hard as Father's Day, and do I focus on fathers? But ultimately, I guess what it comes down to is lead, or being a leader, doesn't change. Because ultimately, as the church, if we stop doing that, then we are not doing our purpose on this planet. So ultimately, I want to focus on the fact that leadership doesn't change. The fact that we, as fathers of our family, are leaders. Fathers in the church are leaders. But ultimately, the church, which is basically the appendage of God the Father here on this planet for the kingdom of God here, we are the leaders that are trying to lead those to the Lord. So, as we think about this, there's three things, or three joke types, I guess, that I want to focus on. So we're going to look at slapstick, we're going to look at observational, and we're going to look at self-deprecating. So, as we move into this, we're going to start with slapstick. Now, for those of you that don't know, slapstick, as a definition, is a type of physical comedy characterized by broad humor, absurd situations, and vigorous and usually violent action. The slapstick comic is usually more than a mere funny man or a buffoon. Most often, they're an acrobat, a stunt performer, or something of a magician. Basically, they are a master of uninhibited action and perfect timing. So, examples of this, if anybody's seen The Three Stooges? If you point at your three kids, I understand. Keegan. The Three Stooges are a really good example of this. Okay, the thing you have to understand is as you think about the Three Stooges, you would think, well, they're just smacking each other, right? They poke each other in the eye. But for those of you who don't know, that takes planning. You can't just stand on stage with three guys and flip your hands around and smack each other and people laugh. There has to be timing. There has to be a setup. It is uninhibited, and there are people who will go to great lengths to create laughter in slapstick. Another really good example that I would use is Home Alone. That movie is still slapstick comedy. For those of you that are a little younger that might have seen that one, that takes timing. The writing that goes into that it's huge. And the timing on when they say lines and when they fall and when they get hit in the face with cans of paint, all of that takes timing. And it is specific in the way that they do that. Now, you might ask, what does this mean as far as us? Well, I have a new daughter, for those of you who didn't know. I have 4 children, and my youngest right now is 2 months old. And the thing is, with being a 2-month-old, she finally started smiling. She's beautiful, I know. Looks like my wife. So she started smiling. Well, I think what we don't realize is that smiles are not natural. Do you realize that? Like, it's not she just ate a lot and she's sitting there like, like when I go to lunch later. That's not the type of smile that this is. This is after 2 months. Do you realize that has to be learned? Babies, through the first 9 to 12 months, they learn what to do with their face. And it's weird because they learn it from watching our face. So when you sit there and you're acting like a doofus and you're like, they're watching you, and they watch when you smile, and they watch when you frown, and they watch when you cry, and they watch. And the interesting thing is they will actually learn those abilities to be emotional from watching our face, and they actually can. It's really crazy. They can actually feel your emotion, and they associate certain emotions with certain faces. So when they're happy and they can feel that energy of happy, they know a smile is happy. And when they look at their mom or dad or grandma or grandpa or any relative or anybody that interacts with them, they react that way with smile, and they react with a frown. Sadie's really good at putting her lip out. That's my 2-year-old. They learn that really fast, and they understand the association. It's crazy that that's learned. It's not known. Yeah, they know that screaming or crying or some sort of sound gets them what they want in some cases, but eventually they learn the nuances of emotion and using their face to communicate that and using physical features to communicate that. Which brings me here. In James, we read, "Do not merely listen to the word, and so deceive yourselves. Do what it says. Anyone who listens to the word but does not do what it says is like someone who looks at his face in the mirror and after looking at himself goes away and immediately forgets what he looked at. But whoever looks intently into the perfect law that gives freedom and continues in it, not forgetting what they have heard, but doing it, they will be blessed in what they do." I want to stop there for a second. It says to do it, right? Now, that word blessed, what do we normally associate blessed with? Things, money. I know, I do. That's when I think about the word blessed. Well, God's going to bless me, right? That means I'm going to have lots of money. I'm going to have a nice house. I'm going to have nice vehicles. I'm going to have this, and I'm going to have this, and I'm not going to cry, and things are never going to be hard. And it's not what the word blessed means. I mean, to be honest with you, I would say it probably means more that you're going to bless his kingdom, right? I don't think he's worried about what I have specifically. I think he will bless his people. But ultimately, the blessing is that you are going to bless this kingdom. So the key to that is they will be blessed in what they do. One other thing, have you ever noticed when you actually truly are working in what God is really pushing you towards, that seems to flourish? Have you ever noticed that? I've noticed that in some things. When I'm truly working in what God wants me to, I see things happen that wouldn't normally happen. So that's just kind of an interesting side note. What good is it, my brother and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but has no deeds? Can such faith save them? Suppose a brother or sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to them, "Go in peace, keep warm and well fed." How many of us have done that? You know, you have that conversation with someone and they just have a burning need, and you're in a hurry and you're like, "Oh, I understand, I'll pray for you. It'll be fine." When really, honestly, you should just help with their need. But does nothing about their physical needs. What good is it? In the same way, faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead. But someone will say, "You have faith, I have deeds. Show me your faith without deeds, and I will show you my faith by my deeds." You believe that there is one God? Good. Even the demons believe that, and they shudder. You foolish person, do you want evidence that faith without deeds is useless? Was not our father Abraham considered righteous for what he did when he offered his son Isaac on the altar? You see that his faith and his actions were working together, and his faith was made complete by what he did. And the scripture was fulfilled that says Abraham believed God, and it was credited to him as righteousness, and he was called God's friend. You see that a person is considered righteous by what they do and not by faith alone. When I evaluate my faith, and it's hard because I want to be a good person. I want to do what I'm supposed to. But faith is more than that. Faith is a true effort. And I don't know if I could do that. For those of you that have children, I'm not sure that I could. I don't know if I have that faith to hear a voice or to hear from God and say, "Well, you're gonna go take your son up and you're gonna stab him and sacrifice him." That is a level of faith I don't know that I'll ever get to. It'd be amazing if I could get to that point where I feel like I could. But the key to that is, Father Abraham had many sons had five. Was he blessed? Was his life all easy? No. But he was blessed. He is the father of many nations, not necessarily all, even just Jewish or Christian, many nations. All came out of him, all because he was focused on his faith. So the key to that is, remember, we talked about the definition of slapstick, right? Slapstick is being a master of uninhibited action and perfect timing. So I would say we need to act our faith. Normally they would say act my age, not my shoe size. But in this case, acting your faith is key to this. Slapstick is your ability to put forth everything in you to make everyone laugh. So imagine if you could put your entire being into what your faith is and you act it on a daily basis. Be uninhibited. You know that moment where you're like, I know, he's just such a good friend. I know, he needs to hear this, but I don't want to make this friendship awkward. So I don't know. I'm just going to leave that. I'll let somebody else talk to him about that. Somebody else can share God with him. How many of us have been there? And the other key to that is timing. Because there are times that we push too much. Whose is the perfect time? God's time. Not my time. And I've had to deal with that a lot. Because I'm a planner, I'm an organizer, I want to push. And if it's not, and then you hit a brick wall. Anybody been there where you push too much and it's not God's time? Because you think it's the right thing. It's not a bad thing you're doing. It's just you think it's the right thing and you push and you're like, I know this is right, but you're just not getting that feel that you're supposed to, but you keep pushing. So the key to this, make sure whatever you do every day, not just Sunday morning, every day. And again, it's not easy. I don't do it every day. There's too many of you in this room that see me every day for me to say that I do it every day. But the key is act your faith every day. So the next type, observational. So observational is a type of comedy in where the humor is based on commonplace aspects of everyday life. In an observational comedy act, the comedian might say things like, makes an observation about something from the backwaters of life, an everyday phenomenon that is rarely noticed or discussed. So that might look something like this. Have you ever noticed, too fast. Have you ever noticed, okay, you ready? Have you ever noticed when a pastor says it's going to be a short message, everyone gets their phones out and pushes back their lunch plans a half an hour? That doesn't happen. Sorry, Ben. But it's you make an observation. There's all sorts of different ones, and most of them are things you're annoyed with. You ever notice you take a number at the BMV and it says 2, but then they go to 25, and things like that. The observational situation. Now, for those of you who are not movie lovers, I'm sorry if you've not seen this. This is called the Lego Movie. This one might be from the second one, but so the Lego Movie. The reason I bring that up is in that movie, Emmett, which is the lead character, he's trying to find who he is or whatever, and he gets to the point where there's other people around him, and they become like master builders, okay, in the movie, if you've never seen. And what they can do is they kind of get in this like zone where they can see different parts, and it has like a number over it, and they can like see it get put together into something. Well, I am blessed by the Lord, and I'm very appreciative of this, is I have the ability to see things. So one example of this is I can actually, if I know what the parts are, I could in my mind visualize the construction of like an engine. I can see the piston, I can see where it is, I can see the parts, I can see the bolts, I can see how, if something breaks, so let's say there's something on a tractor that breaks. I can look at it and I can envision pieces sitting on a shelf somewhere in the shop, or I can envision a piece of metal and I can envision using a plasma cutter, cutting this shape out, welding this piece together. Like, I have that ability to have a visual picture in my brain of that thing being put together. And I don't think everybody has that. My wife, and I think she'd be okay with me, she is not that person. I mean, I could literally explain to her, like when we were building our house, I would sit there and explain. I was like, well, this will be here, and this will be here, and this will be this big, she goes, and she's like, I don't care. Until it's up, I don't know. So it doesn't, like, it's just not the same for her. And I have that ability. I have the ability to look at a situation, assess the situation, and make a mental process of how to fix that situation or to put forth some sort of a solution, right? Well, in James 3, who is wise and understanding among you? Well, let them show it by their good life, by deeds done in humility that comes from wisdom. But if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition in your heart, do not boast about it or deny the truth. Such wisdom, I'm going to pause there for a moment. Are there people that say they have the answer? Anybody ever been there where, like, you go into maybe a car repair place or you call in a contractor to look at something on your house that's going to get worked on, and like, oh yeah, we're going to do this, and then like 20 months later, and they're gone for 10 of that, and nothing. There's bigger holes in your house than actually, or they don't have the right part, and then they're like, well, we really don't actually know how to fix this, and then they just give you the vehicle with parts off of the vehicle, and you have to put it back. That is if you are doing it out of boasting or arrogance or knowing you say you know something, that's not wisdom. That's why they put quotes on that. That is wisdom, I would say, is probably someone who's more likely to stand back and only speaks when they truly know what the answer is. So such wisdom does not come down from heaven, but is earthly, unspiritual, and potentially demonic. Are there times that people can have a demonic possession and know the answers, but it not be a godly answer? That does happen. For where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you will find disorder and every evil practice. But the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. Peacemakers who sow in peace reap a harvest of righteousness. The reason I bring all this up, with equipment I can see, I can visualize in my mind every piece of the construction to fix that problem. And that is what we are called to do. If you look at the definition of observational, it's seeing everyday phenomena that is rarely noticed or discussed. What is one of the more awkward things to have a conversation about than people's faith, especially people that have never been to church? It's an awkward situation. Because you don't want to offend them. You don't want to turn them away. You don't want to say something wrong. But we are called by God, through Jesus, to say that message to the people that don't know it. We are required to observe the need and fix it. Now, that does not mean that you are going to be the one to fix it. I cannot fix my vehicle now. I'm very mechanical, but I do not own the $50,000 computer that you have to plug into my truck to say what's wrong. So should I waste 30, 40 hours working on a vehicle that I know I can't fix? No, that's just dumb. Complete, utter waste of time, right? Now, I'm not saying it's a waste of time to talk to people that are lost, but there are some people. Are there people who are so lost in certain areas that you can't fix that problem? Doesn't mean you shouldn't love them, but what that means is you have to also know where to find someone else. I know where to fix my truck. Okay? I take it to a mechanic who has the equipment, knows how to do it, and can put it back on the road in the right way. And that's what you have to do in this situation. Just because I'm telling you to be observational and fix the need doesn't mean you have to do it all yourself. The key is you just have to be willing to. You have to see the need. If you can walk by people that are homeless and not feel anything, now, I understand in this day and age it's hard sometimes to know what to do in that situation. But if you don't feel something or have a tug to do something, you need to work on that. If you can watch those videos from Honduras and not want to do something, you need to work on that. Doesn't mean you need to go there. That may not be your heart. But you should feel something in that direction. You should see the need and want to fix the need. How many of you walk down the street and look at someone and go, I wonder if they're saved? Or go to work and know for a fact there's someone sitting in the cubicle next to you that has never been told the gospel, ever. And if you can sit there and not want to tell them. Now, again, I'm not saying you need to make it awkward, but you need to start creating moments to do that. Observe the need, figure out a way to do that, because God calls us to do that. Now, the last type I want to spend time on is called self-deprecating. So self-deprecating is it's kind of a harsh comedy, but to be honest with you, sometimes we laugh the most at it. Because unfortunately, we like watching people fall down and hurt themselves, and we like people making fun of themselves. That's where we're at. I think it makes us feel better, so we laugh, right? To be honest with yourselves, it makes you feel a little better when somebody else has bad things going on, and you do too. So self-deprecating is a humor based in belittling or undervaluing oneself, and a better way of putting that, or a nicer way of putting that, is being excessively modest. Some good examples of this, there's a guy named Rodney Dangerfield. By the laughs, and I don't know if everybody's seen Rodney. So Rodney Dangerfield is a good example. Ron White is one that I wouldn't listen to all of Ron White's. It's not always, don't listen with kids. But Ron White's one that makes fun of himself, and that's just, it's a humor. I got a few for you. Ready? I kept it really clean. I'll read it because I was hoping it'd be clearer, but it's not. The first one is, this is for my wife, by the way. I didn't know I had OCD until I watched my kids hang ornaments on the tree wherever they wanted. Right here. There's lots of room. No? Right here. Next one. Being an adult is mostly being exhausted, wishing you hadn't made plans, and wondering how you hurt your back. I didn't realize how true that was until very recently. Next one. Wish I was brave as my kid who just ate 0 bites of his, Riker, dinner, and then asked my wife for a snack 6 minutes after the table was cleared. Every day. All day, every day. Next one. This is, again, for my wife, not for me. I am not emotionally equipped to deal with the sound of a person chewing loudly. That you can. I can't even sit by my wife. She's like, just go away. I was even chewing with my mouth closed. Jace, don't sit by mommy when you eat. Next, I keep hearing people talk about what they're going to do when they retire. I'm going to have to work right up to lunch on the day of my funeral. That's so true. Next, I am at the what can I make with green beans and cake mix stage of needing groceries. Yep, that's the way it goes. But the key to this is I am not saying, and with the transition here, I'm not saying we need to be talking poorly about ourselves. But it does mean, as a definition, that self-deprecating is undervaluing. I did this last time too. Okay, now, What that means is that we share. If you look right here. Therefore, if you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, if any comfort from his love, if any common sharing in the Spirit, so if you have anything that is of the Lord, if any tenderness and compassion, then make joy complete by being like-minded. Okay, so get that. I want you to, so if you have anything of Christ in you, if you have asked Christ in you, if you want to follow Christ, get this. If any comfort of his love, if any common sharing in the Spirit of the Lord, if any tenderness and compassion is in you, then make joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit and of one mind. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourself, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of the others. In your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Jesus Christ, who being in very nature of God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness and being found in appearance as a man. He humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross. A few years ago, there was a young lady in the area who had cancer, and through the process, they got to the point where she was going to need a bone marrow transplant or bone marrow infusion. And so the dilemma with that is a lot of times the matches can be very specific. And a lot of times it tends to be siblings, right? And so the thing is, reading up on the process, there are some rather large needles involved. And they do say that they do local anesthetic, or that there is a certain amount of control of the pain, but it's still a very uncomfortable procedure. I mean, literally, they take a large needle, pull bone marrow out of your hip in most cases, and it is a pretty painful surgery, or process, I guess, to get that. So if I could have Riker, Jace, if you guys come up here. Sorry, he's got to finish coloring whatever he was coloring, I'm sure. Okay, come over here. Now, these are my two boys. What'd you do to your foot? Never mind, I don't want to. Okay, so Jason and Riker, obviously my two boys. Now, the key to this, I want you to understand something. I am 100%, and I'm not just saying this, but I'm 100% totally fine sacrificing myself. Does that make sense? Like my time, my money. If you need clothes, I'll give you my clothes. Whatever I will give you hours, I'll stay up. I don't mind, for me. Like I don't really care. It doesn't bother me one bit. So the key to that is I am okay with this. I am okay with basically giving of myself. But the thing is, if you were to ask me about one of them, I'm not quite as giving. I cannot imagine having to choose, or to give one, to watch them have to go through awful situations and pain. But stand right there. Stay there. What did God do? He sent his son. And sacrificed him for his other children. I don't think I can make that choice. But he did. The key to that is, if we want to be Christian, if we want to follow Jesus, that's what he asks. We must act what we believe. Live it every day, every moment, so that others can see what it means to be a Christian. There's a lot of times people can throw up, well, look at this, look at these people, look at this. You have to show them what it means. And I don't do it every day. I try, and then I fail. But the key is you have to continue to try to work back and act that faith out. The other thing is you need to observe the needs and find some way to fix the problem. Now, it may not be you, but find a way to get them to where they can find God, whatever that means. And the other key is you have to self-sacrifice. Like this life is not meant to be easy. Being a Christian is not meant to be easy. But I guess for me, if God's willing to sacrifice Jesus so that I can be here and do this, then I need to be willing to sacrifice whatever I need to get that done. And so by taking that name, the beautiful name of Jesus, that's what I'm doing, is choosing. And we must all choose to do those three things.
Thank you for tuning in. Please join us for next week's podcast.